Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
All right, we're rolling, and I'm trying this for the third time for this episode. Satya, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm peachy. I'm happy to be back in the recording studio with you. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And we are, bantering as per usual.
Yeah.
And it came up that you are actually as far into the Netflix show Suits as I am.
It's amazing because I hardly watch any TV at all. So
Yes.
for me to get this far with a show is like really an achievement, I believe.
Season 5.
Season 5.
Wow. Yeah. I'm blown away that it's like I didn't think I had time to watch shows, but if you just kind of microdose it here
Yeah,
and there.
That's right.
Is that a thing?
Microdose Suits.
I'm not binging. I absolutely do not
I
have
binge
time to
Suits.
binge. I wish I could binge a show.
Well, I had to binge because I was recovering from cataract surgery. So
Yeah. How did that go, by the way?
great. Yeah. Science is amazing.
Yeah.
I got a whole new eyeball, at least a whole new lens.
Yeah. What is it? They just basically ablate the lens and then give you an artificial one and.
It's wild that you just get wheeled in. They suck out your cataract. They stick a new lens in and you're done in like minutes.
Minutes. Damn.
Yeah.
Is there a person or is this like a robot that does this whole thing?
As a person. I don't know if I'd trust a robot yet for that.
But it's like a person that's like using like a joystick to like guide like a robot in there.
I honestly don't know what he did. I think that there's some manual element, but all you see is bright colors. You don't see like a giant scalpel coming at your eye or anything. Sorry if that's graphic, people.
Well, I mean, there's probably plenty of people listening that have this in their future.
But no, I mean, the first thing I said when it was done was, that was cool.
Oh,
Go
man.
science.
Gosh, my last experience with science and potent medicine, I got done and I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that was wild.
Yeah, isn't it
It's
wild?
like, yeah, it's like, this is freaking wild how this happens.
Totally.
Okay, so you're watching Suits.
So I'm watching Suits. You're watching Suits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, who's your favorite character in Suits and why?
Oh. I mean, obviously I go for the ladies, so it's a tie between Donna and Jessica Pearson. Obviously, both I relate to a lot as being very accomplished career ladies who have good fashion sense.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm really into both of them. I think Donna I relate to a lot because she has this very like competent exterior, but then she has soft feelings on the inside, but she's very protective of them. I relate to that.
Yeah. I can see it. I'm like, if I had to be like, which one? I'm like, you're definitely more of a Donna type. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I like that she's kind of this all-knowing. She like knows.
Yeah,
she's
she
like
knows
all-knowing,
everything.
but she's a secretary. So it's
Yeah.
like she's so capable in everything that she does. She's like the title of my role does not define what I can do.
Yeah.
Like I bring more value to this company than senior associate, senior partners senior partners in this law firm. Anyway, I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm a Louis Litt fan.
Yeah.
I didn't start that way, but now it is just so clear to me that I just love how emotionally driven this guy is to a fault.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I identify most with. It's
I
like,
can see that.
it's like every time I try and be the Harvey Specter, the guy that's like stone cold, I just win, I just know the right thing.
Yeah.
Like that is not my identity. And I've tried to embody that, not because like I want to be that person, but because I've kind of thought that that's who I need to be as a professional. And every time I go down that route, I just feel empty. I feel disconnected. I feel like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I'm just like, no, I like need to be more emotionally driven in my work. Like, even though it's like, don't be an emotional leader. Don't be an emotional, CEO. Like, don't react to, it's like, yeah, I can see how that can really fuck things up. And Lewis fucks a lot of things up, but I'd rather be somebody who, and if you're not watching the show, which I assume many of you have not, it's like people are drawn to Lewis years into this show and seasons into the show because of the emotional person he is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're driven away from the Harvey Specter who's like stone cold. We just know what to expect out of this guy. He's like, he always does the same. He always delivers. It's like there's no variety there. He's not like, hopefully some deeper shit's going to come out of him, but
see, I think he has more nuance because I think that ultimately he's a good person on the inside.
Sure.
And he's driven by doing the right thing, even if he doesn't like to admit it. I think Lewis sometimes, even though he's an emotional person, he's not in touch with that, and so he can get distracted by his tough exterior, his hard exterior. Yeah.
Well, anyhow, great banter topic, and it's a perfect lead-in to our topic today, which is high-performance foods. The segue is...
High-performance lawyers.
I mean, come on. It's essentially the same thing. That's all they do. Actually, all they eat on that show, as far as I can tell, is bagels and coffee.
And cake. A little cake.
And cake. Cake when there's a celebration of some kind.
And booze.
And booze. Lots of Macallan, was it 12,
Macallan
15, 18? What's the number?
Macallan 32.
What is the number in Macallan?
I think it's the number of years it's been aged. I've actually had some Macallan 18 on a special occasion, and it was quite magnificent.
It's what Liver King drinks all the time. Yeah. When I've had the pleasure of being around Liver King a few times and he's in celebratory mood, he walks around with a bottle of Macallan.
Does he share?
Yeah, he does. If somebody asks, I'm not a drinker, so I did not.
You didn't try any Macallan 18? That's a missed opportunity.
No, when he opened up his mystery box of stuff, I only tried the knick-knack. I didn't try anything else.
Who knows what else was in there?
And if this is sparking questions for you as a listener and you're wanting to know more, please send in questions. DM me. I'll tell you all about my Liver King experiences.
Oh my God.
I love Liver King. I love Brian Johnson.
I know you do.
I've had some good times with that.
What a guy.
That guy. What a guy. This whole crew. Okay. High performance foods. First off, let me just say that the world of nutrition is there's nothing new. There's some new stuff coming out here and there, but there's nothing new. Yet, Satya pulled some magic last week. I tried to write some content that I think is, the goal at this stage for me is to continue to try and simplify nutrition so that people can feel like I'm ready to take action, like let's do this thing. And I wrote this content piece that was about, what I consider at this stage to be the most important thing to focus on when it comes to nutrition so that you can manage long-term a healthy weight, give your body the energy it needs to really thrive, optimize your health, all those things. And I create a list of, these foods, this food, these foods, blah, blah, blah. And you called them high performance foods. You're like, hey, I'm kind of making up a term here. Are you good with me going with this? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm good with that. Because you
never texted back.
I did. I thought, did I emoji it or something?
Nope. You just left me hanging. And I only found out after that you were into it.
Uh-huh.
But I texted you. I was like, I'm doing this thing. Okay. Nothing. Crickets.
I was maybe
I was like, oh, he trusts me.
We're basically we're communicating just
telepathically.
That's what's happening.
That's right.
So the high performance. How did you arrive at that, by the way?
Because I was editing the content that you wrote for the email, and what really struck me about it was that this was a whole way of thinking about food that basically highlighted some points where, as you said, there's nothing new about nutrition, but the ways that we can look at nutrition can get updated, and they can get updated in ways that are helpful to make use of how we look at the food choices that we make with a bias towards performance, health, and aesthetics, which is what we're all about here at Functional Bodybuilding. So I was looking at the content that you put together, which was really this step-by-step walkthrough of how to start with your goal and your outlook in mind of what you want your nutrition to essentially do for you. And then how do you make choices about the actual foods that are on your plate to help you accomplish that in the best way? Mm-hmm. And these foods start to have themes around them. And so I was thinking, just with my marketing brain, about the unifying factor of all of those things, which was the benefit of, these are high performance foods. These are foods that, will work the best to accomplish these goals. And so you don't necessarily have to get lost in the weeds. You can kind of just focus on, I'm going to pick from these foods most often.
Sure.
And they're going to perform well for me. So I was like, high performance foods. That's what these
and
are.
It's kind of like the foods themselves are the high performers.
Yeah.
It's not eat these foods and then you can go perform well.
Although you also can.
I love it. And there's so many things that we don't want to break down what this actually means for people.
Yeah.
But I heard somebody talk about this. So it created this very simple analogy, and because the quantity versus quality argument of foods is still central to everything we talk about here.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, people, whether it's health, performance, aesthetics, if you dial in your quantity and you get it right, you're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what that means is, quantity is calories. And people say, well, a calorie is a calorie. And that's, it's important to understand, like, a calorie is a calorie because a calorie is just a unit. It's an energy unit. It's a unit of measure, right? Like a mile is a mile. Like, it doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter whether you walk or run the mile, it's still the same distance. And a calorie is a calorie. But then they were like, but let's talk about how quality fits into this. How are two different types of foods with the same amount of calories different? Well, if you're out for a run and you're going to run a mile, would you rather run a mile uphill or would you rather run a mile downhill if the goal is just to cover a mile the easiest way possible? Mm-hmm. How do you want to run? I want to run downhill. Okay. A calorie is a calorie, but if you eat these foods, it's going to feel like you're going uphill to reach your goal.
Yes.
Of eating 1,000 calories.
Yep.
But if you eat these foods, it's going to feel like you're just cruising downhill to eat 1,000 calories. Now, the uphill downhill as it relates to calories is, for the vast majority of people, it's this, okay? To be healthy, to have the body weight that you want, to thrive, you need to eat this many calories a day. And that's hard if you pick these foods. It's easy if you pick these foods. Generally, the hard foods are the ones that are dense with calories, like the cupcake that has 1,000 calories in it. It's just the size of your fist, but it's so packed with sugar and fat that it maybe more realistic is like an 800 calorie cupcake. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, cool. Like, you're still within your 2,000 calorie budget. You could eat a cupcake a day.
Yeah.
And still hit your goals and be thriving. But it's going to be hard because now you only got 12,000 calories or 1,200 calories, 12,000. 1,200 calories for the rest of your day.
Yeah.
And the cupcake is only going to keep you feeling full for maybe 20 minutes. Maybe not even. Maybe you finish that cupcake and you're like, where's the next one? And if you are like me, you have the next one. And then you're like, shit, I only got 400 calories left for the whole day. And F it. I'm just going to, I'll start tomorrow.
Yeah.
So a cupcake in that instance would be like going uphill for your mile. Whereas if I go over here, is it as appetizing or is it as pleasurable? Maybe not. But if I have, if I throw 2 cups of broccoli, 2 cups of cabbage, and, 2 cups of carrots into an air fryer, spray it with a little bit of avocado oil, put some salt and some seasoning on it. I air fry it for 15 minutes and it comes out roasted and crispy, and like that's going to make about a giant bowl of food for maybe 400 calories.
Yep.
Or less. So I just got a big plate of food that's going to make me feel full longer. It's going to have far fewer calories.
Yep. And
I'm not anywhere close to my budget for the day, and I still can eat a lot more, and I'm not feeling, drawn to like go grab a cupcake right away because I just filled my stomach with something that, is nutrient dense. It's got a lot of nutritious quality to it, not a lot of calories to it.
Yeah.
So calories are calories, but the way you take them in, and that's really what everyone is trying to hack in modern day, because there's no shortage of cupcakes around. There's no shortage of the high, the uphill foods. They're everywhere, and they tend to make you want to eat more of them. Mm-hmm. And there are people that have great restraint and can eat, they can really go flexible dieting, and they can have a bowl of sugar cereal in the morning and, a slice of pizza at lunch and something, like ice cream at dinner, and they're fine. Most people cannot.
Yep.
They'll have that sugary cereal at breakfast, and like by 2 hours, like an hour later, they're like, I'm starving for something. I need something else. And then they have the pizza at lunch, and they can't help themselves from having a second piece. Like, they don't have good control points or willpower. It's not. And so rather than fight the uphill battle, let's create our high performance foods, our list that helps you feel like you're just running downhill. It's kind of easy.
Like, it's easy to hit those targets that you're after. Yeah. I'd love for you to just break down a little bit of what makes foods high performance. In the past, we've talked a lot about simple ingredients, and you pick a protein and a veggie and a starch. And now we're getting into a little bit more nuance around specific foods and why.
Well, the way I kind of look at it is, and you could do this for any food, any macronutrient or any food group, right? So starting with protein, what's a high performance? Well, let me back up and just generally say, and I've already kind of said it, a high performance food would be a food that delivers a lot of nutrition without a lot of energy. So how do we define those, the nutrition part of it? Because energy is calories. Like, if I give you 500 calories, like I got a table, imagine your kitchen table. It's broken up into 4 sections. In section 1, I put 500 calories of a cookie. In section 2, I put 500 calories of like a whole wheat, open-faced sandwich, which has got, some cheese and this on it. And then the next quadrant, I've got something, maybe more like a bowl of oatmeal with, some protein in it and something else. And then the third quadrant, I've got just like a mountain of, vegetables and then some chicken breast. And it's like these are very like high volume foods that, and you can see as you go from one quadrant to the next, like, okay, quadrant 1, the cookie, that's like a little small pile of food.
Yeah.
The next one, maybe it's a little bit bigger pile, but it's still got some dense stuff in it. And the third one, it's an even bigger bowl of food. And, and then the last one is like a giant heaping bowl, and they all have the same amount of energy, calories, but there's more volume or more nutritious nutrients in each quadrant, kind of going up the ladder.
Yeah.
To what we would call the highest density of nutrition and per calorie.
Yep.
And so that's kind of how things get started. It's and this is based on the fact that humans are in our modern culture, like, we eat to satiety, or to the point of feeling like, okay, I feel full. Mm-hmm. You'll do that time and time and time again. You put people, like, there's so much access to food. We're not in a, our our environment is so unnatural. I'm putting like air quotes up, like it's unnatural relative to like how our biology is prepared to take on, making food choices, right? Our biology was never built to walk into a grocery store when it was very hungry and have any self-control.
Right.
Our biology was built to be really hungry and that be the motivator to get on your feet and get off your ass and go hunt something or go find something and forage for something. When you show up hungry and there's hundreds of thousands of calories staring you in the face at a Whole Foods, you're like, oh my God, there's a little bit of this. I'm going to have a little bit of that. I'm going to snack on this. It's so available. We're not set up for it. So we eat until we're full, and we want to start to think more in terms of like, okay, which foods are going to be the highest performing for us by delivering us with the nutrients we want, the nutrition that we want, without the energy that we are trying to essentially avoid because it's too easy to overconsume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I really liked about how you explained this topic in the newsletter that we put together around this, it's on our website as well. We can link it in the show notes. I think it's a blog post now, but,
yes.
It's just that this is like a very accessible concept to actually put into practice right away, because you don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel of the entire way that you eat, but you can just look at what your most common meals are. Like what's your go-to breakfast? Likely you've had the same thing for breakfast several days this week already, or in the past couple weeks, you often rotate through the same few things. And I know, for example, my go-to breakfast might be like yogurt and berries and a little granola, a Greek yogurt or something. But then I know that I get hungry an hour and a half, 2 hours later. And so it's like, hey, like if you just swap that breakfast with something a little bit more nutrient dense, gives you even more energy, but still roughly the same amount of calories, maybe a few more, then that's going to like keep you full till lunch. And it's like even easier to hit that protein, hit your nutrients. So I just like that concept of how to take these high performance foods, and we're not necessarily saying like, hey, you have to go like follow like the high performance meal plan and the high performance diet. The more of these foods you eat, the better, great. But even if you swap out one thing that's a go-to meal of yours with something a little bit more nutrient dense, high performing, it can make a huge impact.
Yeah, it comes back to a common reality amongst most people is that we all tend to eat a lot of the same things over and over and over again. And what you eat over and over and over again is informed by a lot of different things, from how you were raised, the people you spend time around, the environment that you're in, what you've been told is healthy and what's not. And so, and what a lot of people have been told is healthy, doesn't fall in line with like these fundamental principles that we're talking about around high performance foods. So they keep their house stocked with all of this stuff because that's what they believe is the right stuff to be eating. And yet they're like not seeing the results that they want.
Right.
So it's like, well, okay, then let's swap, rather than take what's already there and try to manipulate it to fit the macros and fit the calories that you're supposed to eat. Let's start the process of swapping some of those things out for other things. It's like, I go back to like when I came home from medical school and college, both, but I think it was mostly after medical school. I can't remember which one, but I was moved back home with my parents and for a period of a few years. And what was important was that I wanted to create a healthy eating environment, for myself. But I started to help we together, my mom, because she's mostly involved in a lot of the shopping for the house, like we kind of did like an overhaul. Like I was like, hey, these foods just shouldn't be here. Like, let's get these foods instead. Let's always keep this house stocked with the right stuff, and it was to the best of my knowledge at the time, but it was like an upgrade. And she recalls that being such an upgrade to her life, where she was like, wow, like you just helped me clean out the house of like stuff that wasn't supposed to be here. And it wasn't always the obvious stuff. Like, yeah, like why do we have these sugar cereals anymore. Like, we got to get rid of that stuff. Or why don't we have this? But then it was some other like, oh, like, let's swap in some of these types of, this type of dairy. Or let's swap these meats out and let's have these types of meats around more often. Let's swap out these, canned things. Let's get some more of this fresh stuff in.
Yeah.
And these were just like, simple swaps, but it made a big difference for her, for sure. So yes, we all tend to eat the same things. Let's stock our house with the right stuff, and let's start to phase out some of the things that, just are not serving you anymore.
Yeah.
And this can be, how we create this list. So I did I created a list for proteins, for veggies, for starches, for fruits, and now even a list that we're kind of making for fats.
Yep.
And those it covers really the whole, all the food groups that you might be reaching. You
could have a lot of meals out of those things.
Yeah. And each list, we can go from like number 1 on the list to number 30 on the list.
Yeah.
So for proteins, it's, all right, these are all foods that people reach for that are predominantly protein, or they're reaching for them to meet a protein requirement. Now, some foods you can eat are strictly protein. There's nothing else but protein in them. Take a pure whey isolate protein powder that has no carbs, no fat. Right? That is 100% protein. Okay, so that would be kind of like the most pure form of protein you could get. You're going to get the most protein for the fewest amount of calories. Mm-hmm. Now, most whey proteins that you buy, if they're going to taste good at all, they're going to have a little bit of carbohydrate and a little bit of fat, right? Like, there's very few, I can't think of any on the market that are just pure protein that are even like palatable. It's like chalk, cardboard, like, I don't know, anything you could think of that doesn't taste appetizing, that's what that's going to be. So, all right, well, let's just take that off the list. You keep going down the list and, hey, this protein source has good protein, but it also carries with it a lot of fat too, which we're not here to say is bad, but if you're trying to get protein, then what are the protein sources that give you the most protein without the most additional stuff? And so kind of create this list of like, to get 20 grams of protein with the fewest amount of calories, you start with number 1 on the list, and then you go to number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and really anything in the top 12 or the top 15 of that list is a great thing to stock your house with.
Yep.
Can you get a good amount of protein from bacon? You can get protein from bacon, but bacon has more fat per gram or, per serving than it does protein. So if you want to get 30 grams of protein from bacon, which is a 30 gram number for like a midday meal, it's kind of what you want. You want to get about 30 grams of protein at lunch or for a snack to hold you over and kind of reach that threshold of protein that's going to keep you satiated for any period of time.
Yeah.
It's okay. So you want to do that with bacon? Well, okay, you're going to get a lot of extra energy, a lot of extra calories. Energy and calories are the same, just to do that with bacon. Whereas if you did it with tuna or chicken or a low-fat Greek yogurt or a low-fat cottage cheese or egg whites with 1 egg or, some of the others that are above that bacon on the list, you're going to be in a better spot. That's a more downhill type of food choice, high-performance food, than bacon, which is kind of an uphill one.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should never run uphill and you should never eat bacon. It's just that if bacon is the way that you're going to try and hit your 50 grams of protein for breakfast, then you're looking at many, many hundreds of calories to do it. Whereas if you just had a 50-gram whey protein shake with 2 bananas and 2 apples, like, you would get a lot more nutrition, feel a lot more full, get all that protein, but not be anywhere close to how many calories you would be consuming if you got 50 grams of protein from bacon. And so this is, when people hear that, they're like, okay, that makes sense. And then you start to see it in the way of like food choices. It's becomes like, okay, that's a real game changer, because if I just stick to these foods, I'm going to hit my nutrition goals, my nutrient goals, like the things that I need to thrive. And I'm not going to have to think as critically about how to like manage my calorie intake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did that with protein. Same thing with vegetables, right? Like, you know, way up on the top of the list of veggies that give you the most food for the fewest amount of calories. You know, something like a cucumber. You can eat like bowls of cucumber. Like essentially, I had this like, I saw someone say like, hey, try these 0-calorie desserts. And it was, you know, these are not desserts, but it's like take a bunch of cucumbers, refrigerated cucumbers, cold cucumbers, sprinkle some 0-calorie sweetener and put some cinnamon on them. And you get this like sweet crunch, like right in the evening. And it's like, you're not adding any calories to your mix. It's not going to replace like ice cream. It's not the same as eating ice cream, but it's like, you can see that if you're trying to fill up on foods, because we're all trying to achieve this satiety, we want to feel full, then there are some foods that are going to do a lot better than others. So we created a list of, you know, high performance veggies. Like what are 5 to 10 veggies that you should just always have in your fridge?
Yeah.
And there it's like, okay, this is what's here. And these are the 5 proteins that I have stocked. Okay. Like, and then what about fruits? Like, which are the best fruits? Like, which ones should I buy that are the highest performing with this analogy that we have going on so far? Oh, well, there's like all forms of berries are great. Like melons are great. Watermelon's outstanding. Like, you know, I could eat a whole watermelon, a giant watermelon, and only get like 400 calories from that. Whereas if I ate that much in bananas, it'd be a lot more. So, okay, not to say you shouldn't have a banana. Banana could be a good choice, but it's like the further up that list you go, the better. So I'm going to stock my fridge with berries and watermelon and cantaloupe and these high volume, lower calorie fruits. And then we go to starches. It's like, okay, well, what starches? Like, well, you know, whole wheat bread is pretty densely packed, but then there's these types of breads that have fewer calories per serving. And then there's, well, if we keep going up, we get into squashes. Like you're going to have a butternut squash. Well, that's going to get you a lot more volume for the same number of calories that one slice of bread got you. And then, you know, somewhere in there is like, you know, beans, like pinto beans or black beans. Like, well, maybe those are a better starch option for me. And you go up and up and up that list, and we kind of laid that out. It's like, okay, well, if I take the top 5 on this list, and that's what I stock my pantry with or my fridge with, like that's gonna be a win. And then last is like fats. Like, where do you get fats from? Well, you know, oil in the pan, we need fats, healthy fats. You need fats in your diet. Do you need 4 tablespoons of olive oil to go with your, you know, roasted veggies? Or could you find a way to make your roasted veggies and then have some avocado on the side, which will give you a lot more volume of food for the same amount of total calories that you would get in 1 tablespoon of olive oil, which you might not even perceive, you know, in your diet.
Right.
So now you have your high performance foods that we've kind of helped illustrate through some very, you know, simple tables. Like, yeah, this is it. These are my 5 to 10 on each of these lists that I want to stock my house with. And now that's what I'm reaching for most days. And I'm combining them in ways to get me protein at the center of my meal and then whatever else I'm feeling like. And if that's how you protect yourself and help make eating more of running a downhill mile versus running an uphill mile, that's where people are spending the vast majority of their time anyway with food. You're going to have plenty of room to go out and eat out once, twice, even 3 times a week, you know, have a treat here and there, live a normal life.
Yeah.
But you're protecting this whole other area of where you spend a lot of time with your nutrition.
Yeah. And I think a special shout out goes to the first meal of the day, breakfast.
For sure.
To start that downhill momentum early in the day. Yeah.
And that was this is what kind of spurred this whole thing, was thinking about, you know, our 50-gram challenge, which the 50-gram challenge is to start and end your day with a 50-gram protein meal. You start with breakfast, 50 grams of protein at breakfast, which is what we kind of focus on because that is the most counterculture thing to do within this. Like a lot of people do 50 grams of protein at dinner without issue.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, I'm having like I'm having a chicken breast, like one chicken breast, or I'm having, you know, an 8-ounce steak, or I'm having
piece of fish or
piece of
something,
fish. Like it's pretty easy to nail that at dinner for a lot of people because that's been ingrained in the culture to think, yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah.
It's not been ingrained in the culture to think that's what you do at breakfast.
Right.
But we want to take advantage of these two ends of the day because each one is followed by or, you know, preceded by a big fast. And protein, especially as we age, as we get a little bit older, is the most powerful lever in our nutrition to keep us metabolically healthy, keep our muscle healthy, keep our muscle maintained and growing alongside the training that we're doing. So anyhow, these foods and these lists are massively impactful if you can start to adjust them. And I have, even in my like 29th year or 27th year of doing diets and nutrition and thinking, like, I have continued to update and upgrade what those food lists look like for me that provide me the highest performance, outcomes.
Yeah, I've watched the evolution of your lunches that you bring to work.
Anyhow, so it's been really impactful, and we want to share that. Hopefully, that created a framework for people to think about today.
Yeah. And
there's going to be resources coming out. There's of course the blog post that you can go and look at now, but more to come soon. And yeah, anything else? Any other like take home questions or thoughts that you want to see the listener with?
Just one final thought on breakfast, which is that if you are hungry and going into lunch like, oh my God, I cannot wait to eat my lunch, I'm starving and I'm crashing before it's even noon, like that's a key sign to upgrade your breakfast.
Yeah,
Yep.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Okay, get your 50 grams of protein in for breakfast. Visit the High Performance Food blog post. Start to swap some things out. Send us your questions and your challenges, and we'll see you on the next episode.
We will see you.